Today, yes. Today we are going to create our main player and move it back in a smartphone screen by touching and dragging and dropping this element. So we will create a script that allows the user to touch the screen, and the same that they drag and drop, the main player will follow that same action, direction, and position. So let's go to Unity. Let's create this script. Very simple. And I'm sure you will use this in your games.
We are in Unity, so let's start with this tutorial. So I will first start by creating our main player, again, as we did in the last video. So I will create it in the middle of the screen, a bit smaller, like this, perfect. And we're going to include a component Rigidbody to this object. I will remove the gravity, so it's not affected by the gravity. Only when I touch the screen and move it, it will move. Let's click play just to verify this, that the object is not falling. Perfect. And now we just need to create a new script that we will assign directly to this GameObject, to the player, so that it's moving according to when we touch the screen of our device. So this will be move player, for example. I will attach to this asteroid the move player script, and we will now modify it to include all the logic that we need to. Perfect. So let's open the script. Let's start editing everything. And one important thing that I would like to tell you is that we are going to create a script that allows you to touch anywhere in the screen. You don't need to touch over the player. You can touch in any other place of the screen. We will calculate the difference between where we touch and the player, and then move accordingly the player as you move your finger. So we will start by defining the variables that we will need for this. On the one side, a public Rigidbody 2D. That is where we are going to act and modify the position and the velocity of the player. Then on the other side, we need, as we said, two variables to calculate the difference between where we touch and the player in both X and Y axis. We're going to call this delta X and delta Y, for example. In the start, what we will do is automatically retrieve the Rigidbody from the player. So from the object where this script is attached is the same as the player. So the player Rigidbody will be equal to get the component Rigidbody 2D in this case. Once we have it, we can start doing actions on it. And then in the update method, every frame we're going to check if the user is touching the screen or not to act accordingly. And there will be three different phases in the touch. When you start touching, to calculate the distance, the difference between where you touch and the player. When you drag, that will be moving your player. And when you finish, that will stop the player in the position where it is. So for that, first what we need to do is that only if there are any touch in the screen, we will react. Else, we are not doing anything. So if input touch count is more than 0, if there is any touch in the screen, we will do something. Else, we are not doing anything. If there is a touch, what we will like is to retrieve it. So we would like to get this touch that is happening, and for that we will do input get touch in the position 0, the first touch in the screen. If the user touches with two fingers, the first touch is the one we are going to take into account to not complexify the scenario. So once we have this, what we need to know is the position of this touch. So we will create a touch position, for example, vector2, to know exactly where is this. But we need to transform, let's say, from the place where you touch in the screen to the game world, let's say. So we will do a camera main screen to world point, okay? From the screen to what is that exactly equivalent in the world of the game. We will do this for the touch position, okay? So we can calculate correctly the difference. Touch dot position, okay, from here. Great, so now we have detected the touch. We know where the user did this touch in the screen, so we can calculate the difference and we can start acting on this. So let's analyze the different phases, those three phases that we said. Depending on the phase, we will do something or the other thing. On the first side, when the touch phase is begun, we are going to calculate this difference, this distance, as we have mentioned before. For that, we will calculate delta in x and y. In x, we just need to know where the user touched the screen, and we will just compare with the position of our game object. If we put transform position x, we'll get the transform position of the object where this script is attached. So our player, our asteroid in this case. Once we have this, we will just copy and paste to do the same, but delta y, with the position in the y-axis on both cases. We just calculate this and we can move on. Next phase, the next case, will be the phase moved, when we detect that we are moving the finger in the screen. In this case, what we will do is modify the position of our player. For that, we will act on the rigid body, and we're going to use the move position method, where we need to provide a new vector 2, saying, okay, move it, how much in x, how much in y. We will move it, touch position, minus delta x. And on the other side, the same, but for the y. So touch position dot y minus delta y, like this. Perfect. So with this line, what we are doing is moving it. Now it's in the phase moved, so we are moving it, taking into account that difference and where we are touching in the screen. And finally, the last case will be touch phase dot ended. This now, here, and a break, as always in this switch. So when we finish, when the user just stops touching the screen, what we need to do is stop the object at the place where it is. And for that, we are going to act on the velocity property of this object. And what we will do is provide a vector 2 for sure, but we can make use of this function to say that in both x and y is 0. Stop the player just at the position where it is when the user stops touching the screen. So this is the script. We can save it. We can go to the play mode just to verify that we are getting correctly in runtime the rigid body of our player in the script. Right now there is no reference, you can see none, but in runtime when we run it, this should detect automatically, as in here, the asteroid rigid body. So perfect, I will now export this and let's see in the device if it's working as expected. Okay, so here we have the game installed, and we can see when we touch the screen, it doesn't matter where. For example here, not over the player. The player is moving accordingly when I move the finger. I can touch anywhere in the screen and the user will keep moving as I want. I can also tap over the player for sure, but that will not allow me to see well where the user is going during the game, so maybe I cannot avoid correctly some obstacles. So yeah, this is basically how it works. You can do it for your mobile devices, not for PC games, and you can do this to move your player and just implement this. So great, if you have any problem or doubt during the implementation, let me know, as always. Else, if it worked for you, I will be very happy to know it also in the comments, or see your likes and subscriptions as always in the channel. That are helping me a lot. So wish you a nice day, hope you have success with your projects, and see you in the next video.